Well, first, let me begin by saluting Senator Toomey for his service and dedication, his thoughtful and professionalism. We have a major event in common. We both went to the same high school, LaSalle Academy in Providence, Rhode Island. What I don't have in common with Senator Toomey is I was not first in the class, and I was not accepted at Harvard College. So you've got a couple things up on me, Patrick. Let me also say to Senator Shelby, congratulations for your service. I arrived here 25 years ago, and he was a leader then, and he's a leader now, and an extraordinary gentleman. And now let me turn to the director. First, a question that's come to mind as I've listened to the discussion. The decision by the Fifth Circuit, rather, also calls into question the validity of the Federal Reserve. Is that correct?
Well, the CFPB's funding is the same funding as the Federal Reserve System. So I think, yes, it certainly does. And that is part of what the Solicitor General, in her petition for cert to the Supreme Court, has articulated.
So we should really start warning Wall Street right now that and get their reaction to a Federal Reserve that is subject to congressional appropriations. And by the way, we're trying to get that wrapped up a few months later than normal. But I think that's something that should be at least on the table and considered. But let me direct my major attention to the Military Lending Act, because I was helpful in getting it passed. Can you tell us, or give us an update on what you've done this year with supervision and enforcement of the Military Lending Act?
Yes, so we've actually taken a number of actions, including against repeat offenders of the Military Lending Act. We've sued First Cash, the nation's largest pawn lender. We've taken action in a number of other places, including Moneyline Technologies a few months ago. Let me say pretty straightforwardly that when this law is not adequately enforced, the effects on the force are real. People can lose their security clearances. They can face their own financial distress for them and their families. So we are very committed to fully prosecuting this law and being very clear about our expectations.
Let me shift to another piece of legislation. That's the Service Member Civil Relief Act. When I was in the service, it was called the Soldiers and Sailors Civil Relief Act. But it provides, among other things, a maximum interest rate of 6%. And last week, I believe CFPB published some research findings. Can you provide us some details about
Yeah, so what we identified is for service members' pre-service obligations, they're entitled to a 6% rate cap to ensure that, especially if they're activated Guard or Reserve, that their financial life doesn't move into disarray. So we identified that there are millions of dollars in extra interest that is being that service members are paying when they're activated, and we're particularly worried about the Guard and the Reserve. I'll also say, as interest rates in the economy go up, that's bigger money when it comes to activations and what happens to those families.
Well, thank you, because I think you've made the point quite clearly that this is not just an issue of financial transactions, it's an issue of military readiness and the impact on families and individual service members. Let me shift gears again to buy now, pay later phenomenon, which is going on. It's getting more and more popular. Are these loans, buy now, pay later, being structured to avoid the Military Lending Act? Have you found any?
So I don't want to say that it's intentionally done a certain way, but certainly the applicability of the Military Lending Act gets trickier when it comes to buy now, pay later. One of the things that we've been working with buy now, pay later firms on is how can they also get credibility and certainty in the market and make sure that, if it's a substitute for credit cards, how might we make sure that disclosures and other protections are equivalent? I think we've seen what happens when there's no credibility in a product and it can be chaotic. I think buy now, pay later is going to continue to be a major way people borrow. And I think it's important we continue to think about the service member and military protections in that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Director, and keep up your good work. Thank you.